let's just jump right in, man. Tell me,
Sure.
tell me how you ended up in the Marine Corps. What made you want to enlist?
Oh yeah, I mean it's a bit of a different story. When I was a young man, my grandfather, served in World War II, and I didn't know that until I had found a box of his old medals that he had been storing in the basement. I happened to find playing ping pong with my cousins.
Yeah,
Got to imagine a basement in Chicago back in the 80s. Like you had
right.
these little like creepy crawl spaces. Ping pong balls would go back there and they'll be gone forever, right? And then the last one happened to go, and all the cousins were like, "Well, you got to go, Tim." And so I went in there, found all the ping pong balls, but I also found this old cigar box, and a curious young kid opened it up and found a bunch of medals in there. Ended up being enamored by that, taking them home without my grandfather knowing. My mom bought me the uh, Encyclopedia Britannica for one of my birthdays. So I tried to find everything and I could and aligned all the medals as I could and gave it back to him and was not expecting the response from an old World War II cat like him. He was extraordinarily angry and mad. But that left a significant mark on me. And when my time came, 17 years old, the choice of wanting to go into the military or go to college, I knew I was not college material at the time, so that moment stuck out in me, and I told my mom that I wanted to be a Marine. So she was a little taken aback by that at first. Growing up in the Vietnam era, she's like, "Is this?" Asked me, "This is what I wanted to do." And she took me up to the memorial, Vietnam Memorial. We were living in North Carolina at the time, and got to see her cry for the very first time. That I didn't cause, where she copied every male that she could remember from her high school that served in that war and never made it home. So that was really the moment I was like, "Yes, this is exactly why I want to join the Marine Corps, and this is why." And never forgotten that moment.
Man, what a powerful moment. I can only imagine what that was like to see a parent um care so much about that to like you said, do the research, go up there and
Yeah.
prepare to stencil all the names, those kind of things.
It
What
it
did
was
that?
kind of
Yeah.
I would say it's a bit serendipitous. Like here I am, 20 years, almost 30 years later, and I had to ask my son the same thing. My son said, "Tim or Dad, I want to join the Marine Corps," and I asked him, "Well, son, is this what you want to do?" And he's like, "Yes, yes, this is what you want to do." And from a much different perspective, my mom, physically brought me to see that. I having experienced it myself in combat in Iraq. I just asked my son, I'm like, are you prepared to shoot it and kill another man? And he's like, no. I'm like, well, the Marine Corps is not for you. Maybe you should find something else within the military that gives you the same amount of pride. And he ended up joining the Navy and is now 3 years into his military service on the USS Nimitz.
Uh, Man, so much in that statement alone. Number one, I'm sure you're proud of your son, but also, um, telling that story, like you said, are you ready to shoot another man? I mean, that's as we all know, Marine Corps, we're all riflemen, baseline, no matter what your
Yeah.
MLS is, you're all trained to do those things, and it's I was in at a time in the '90s where there's no deployments, no, nothing big happened while I was in. What year did you go in?
Yeah, I joined in 1997, Paris
Yeah,
Island.
yeah. So you were starting right when I was kind of leaving.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
I remember that moment. There was 5 suicides on Paris Island during that cycle, and I believe 2 of them were drill instructors, which was crazy. They were talking about shutting the island down and sending us all home.
man, I have no memory of that. There were two drill
Yeah,
instructors and three recruits at the time
three recruits.
that committed suicide around the time
Yeah,
that you were in. Or
yeah. One of them, I was snapping in at Weapons Battalion, and the guide took his life on the firing line because he was going to go unk. Yeah, sad.
man, yeah, yeah, dang. A lot to unpack there too. I mean, like you said, because he was about to go onk, and um, the pressure we put on ourselves, the standards that we're told we have to uphold. and then the pressure we put on ourselves to live up to that.
Yeah.
I mean, that weight for a lot of people is obviously too much to even handle
Yeah.
as a recruit, which is kind of
The
a story in
the idea,
itself. Yeah,
yeah, thinking back in it now, it's like the idea that you're willing to go back 2 months in training, uh, or you're willing to take your life rather than go back 2 months in training tells you a lot about Marine Corps training itself.
man, no doubt. And so you go in 97.
Yeah,
There hadn't been, I talked to a lot of Vietnam era guys, from 75 officially to 9/11. There were Desert Storm, Mogadishu. There were things
yeah,
that happened, but no full scale, decade long war like you fought in, right? More than that, actually. So when you went in, did you have what were your thoughts around that? It had been a long time since America had been in a full scale war.
yeah. Well, I watched every Vietnam movie, like every other American at that time, right? And it had all of the afflictions of wanting to see combat, but there really wasn't much happening, right? I think the biggest circumstance that was going on was Kosovo in '99. I was supposed to be on that float to go out to that, but I did I got pulled off of that and didn't make it out. But largely it was uneventful. And in 2001, April 2001, I go back to Chicago. September 11th happens. I'm a union carpenter at the time, and I'm like, holy hell, we're going to war, and I'm not in the Marine Corps any longer. What do I need to do to get back in? So I'm trying to find ways of getting back into the military, and there's a reserve battalion out of Chicago that I've been doing my check-ins, through the IR, your IRR check-ins, and I was like, well, this seems as good a place as any, and start talking to the command there, and got brought into the IRR, and not long after that, I've learned that the unit was about to deploy, so I asked to get into the reserve side. And they're like, well, we only carry an MTO for O3s. You're an 1800 series, so you're gonna, we don't have any room for you. I'm like, well, that's bullshit. Like, I want to go on this deployment. And they're like, well, you'd have to OJ and take on the secondary MOS of riflemen. I'm like, absolutely, I'll take it, right? So they moved me over to the weapons company, and it's where I ended my time with them. I spent I want to say like 3 years with that unit. Most of the training to go to Iraq, and then just did the time in there and came home.
So one deployment
One deployment, yeah.
to
We were supposed to go back again in 2008, but it was fob security, and I wasn't down for that shit.
tell me what you'd like people to understand about your time in a combat zone. I mean, because and also just kind of
Yeah,
like what how you think about that now years later.
yeah. At the time, I felt like I was, King Dingaling, man. You're walking around, doing the Lord's work, killing the enemy. And that's what we did. We killed a lot of the enemy. I fought in the Triangle of Death, one of the worst spots in the war. I think throughout the entire time of Iraq. And we did some significant work there. We killed over 1,500 bad guys and put over 1,000 dudes into Abu Ghraib with a better than 95% retention rate. So we were putting the right people into prison and killing the right people when they needed to be killed. I think that here I am 20 years after that whole circumstance, and I think I look across the veteran space today, and there's a lot of problems. I think our cohort of warfighters are ashamed. I think that there's a lot of them that are walking around with no purpose. I feel like there is a shell of of what we were in those periods when we were really proudful war fighters. And I think that majority of us are now addicted to these pharmaceuticals that they have us on, within the VHA, and wrecking our lives, right? And we can see that through the suicides that are happening in record numbers, epidemic, 156,000 plus have killed themselves over 20 years. and the cancers that are happening from burn pits, right? And the tens of thousands that have died from that. Like, yeah, this is a big problem, right? And it's hard to be it's hard to be proudful of your time in service, and when you're seeing all that stuff, right, and the 20 years worth of combat, and the way that these warfighters are being treated today. So it's tough, right? And but I'm encouraged, right, to know that there, like people like my son, my brothers, and my sisters that have all stood and been in combat and raised their hand. I'm encouraged by my son today that's willing to, in spite of seeing his father struggle with all these things for the last 20 years, has raised his hand and joined the military as well to defend this country. So I think those are all really encouraging things. I think that, you uh, I think we're just tired of war, man. I think let's give give peace a chance.
Yeah, I think the war weary thing is real. I mean, for sure on a lot of levels. But I think this interesting, thing that you mentioned about in the mindset of the war fighter, um, and being the grandson of your grandfather, and I think I grew up kind of in the same area you did, a little bit before, but it was I definitely even growing up in the post Vietnam era, thought about that in a much different way than I think people think about it today.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of reasons, why that does exist. But yeah, if you grew up around a World War II veteran, the way they spoke about war is different than it is today. I mean, just not the same thing.
yeah, yeah. And same with Vietnam guys, right? The Vietnam guys were less inclined to talk about their conflicts than the World War II guys, but for a much different reason, right? They were afraid of getting spit on and accosted and all these other things. Right, the veteran today doesn't speak about their service because what is there to speak of? Like, we didn't have victory in Iraq, we didn't have victory in Afghanistan, we didn't have victory in the global war on terror. We killed a bunch of people that could have been the enemy, but and we've largely the success that can be measured is that there's been no sizable attack here in the United States from a terrorist of Middle Eastern descent, right? But we've got all sorts of other problems, right? And I think the veteran is tired, right?
Yeah.
The country is looking for people that that can stand up and be the example. Well, the veteran has been carrying that pack for 20 plus years, doing the work that the country has asked them to do, and here we are, in the veteran space, trying to be prideful and trying to hold hold the line. But it's tough, right? And I certainly don't. I'm not painting any picture that the veteran is a victim of anything, right? We all raised our hand. We all did this job,
Right.
and but at the same time, we all signed a contract. And in that contract, I was not being told that I was going to be exposed to burning oil fields that my government was going to set on fire and expose me to. Right? They they did tell me that they were going to put me into a medical system that was going to overdose me on pharmaceuticals and antidepressants that would likely kill me. They didn't tell me any of that.
Yeah. Do you have some lingering health issues from breathing, burn pit, and that kind of stuff? Have you had dealt with that?
Yeah, yeah. I've got some challenges that I've some autoimmune issues that have just so happened to start within the last 3 years. And you're talking about latency of some of these issues, specifically autoimmune and respiratory issues of 12 to 15 years from exposure. A lot of my friends are dead from this, right? The guys that I shared bunk space with, right? Have colon cancer, liver cancer. My friend died of lung cancer. My battalion commander is dead of brain cancer. I'm sorry, lung cancer. My battalion XO is dead of brain cancer. There's 30 other individuals that have cancer that have died or surviving or struggling with it today. So it's not a pretty picture, right? And that's just one battalion, right? You know there's 4.5 million of us that went in and out of those godforsaken places, and 100% of us have been exposed.
Yeah. Yeah. And sadly, you're not the only generation that went through. You got the Agent Orange stuff. I've talked
Yeah,
to guys who were sent to Marshall Islands to clean up radioactive nuclear waste and that kind of stuff. I mean, seems to happen over and over and over again, and for whatever
Yeah, it's
reason,
funny.
we don't stop doing it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
thank God for the PACT Act, man. Like, had we not, picked up the Agent Blues and the Agent Blacks and the Agent Whites, like, I never even knew those things existed until we still really started peeling back the onion on that stuff. It's like none of those people, they weren't being protected by the Agent Orange legislation. None of that stuff was even codified, right? So, thank God for that. We were smart enough that we put, to capture all the people that have been harmed from previous stuff, and then put enough legalese in there to say, for presumptives, anybody that for future conflict will never have to deal with this again. Like,
yeah,
God dang.
yeah, yeah. So, man, I could talk to you about this stuff all day long, but I want to talk about a little bit about your professional life, to get in
Yeah,
with Grunt Style, and I know you guys have grown that brand. What year did you join? Did you? I know you're technically a co-founder, but you joined as it already started. Tell me the backstory of that.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. So the company was founded in 2009 by Daniel Alaric. He's a former drill sergeant in the Army. And the idea was to put military euphemisms, colloquialisms, jingoisms, all those things, those values onto a product. Because what better way than to take those values with you than put them on a T-shirt and sell them into the civilian space, right? So, from 2009 to 2012, that's what Daniel did to really no big effort, right? There were several instances where he, tried to close the business down because it wasn't doing anything. The last, he tells us one story of, going to Vegas, and if he didn't make $6,700 or $6,000, he was going to shut it down, and he ended up making $6,700 to keep the doors open for one more round. And that's when I came into the picture. I came in folding T-shirts. There was probably 5 employees total at the time, in office space less than 1,000 square feet. And I came in, saw bounty of opportunity, and just started doing shit, like doing stuff more than what I was asked to do than folding T-shirts. And that often came to the point of where I was doing it after hours. I'd clock out and just do more stuff because things were backing up and yada yada yada. And before long, I was just climbing the scale, right? Climbing the ladder of, like, I saw a problem, I would just go do it. I wouldn't ask for permission. I wouldn't ask, what was holding something up. I just did it. And meritocracy goes a long way in the United States of America, and it goes a long way in capitalism, right? And through that effort, I was awarded and rewarded opportunities within the business. And I climbed and held every position in the organization, from folding T-shirts, to being the president at one point. So there's nothing in this business that I haven't done. There's no aspect of this business that doesn't have a piece of my DNA in it. And I'm extraordinarily grateful for that, because, like, I think that has a lot to do with the success of the business, is that, it was really built from the ground up by, the people that, started the brand, and put all of their flavor and attitude and grit into this, as it was growing from the beginning to where we are today.
Where does that come from? That thing that you described, staying late, doing things that you weren't asked to do. I think there's definitely you see that in the Marine Corps a lot, and but I don't
Yeah.
think that it just came from that. There's probably something more in you as well. So where do you think that comes from?
Jokingly, autism. Right. Yeah. And you can look across the Marine Corps. I think most Marines are autistic. But it's a desire, right? It's intrinsic. It's like a drum that beats inside of you, that you can't control it, right? I can't explain half the motivations of the things that I do, right? Between being writing books, being a painter, to standing up several different businesses. I run 4 different businesses besides Grunt. It's I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that I can't sit still. I know that I can't be idle. And those are very dangerous positions for myself to be in, because that's when I was in my darkest moments of my life, that is what was happening. I was idle. I wasn't creative. I wasn't using my imagination and my hands. I was just existing, and that was the darkest, most bottom parts of my life that I never I never want to go back to. And maybe that's what the drive is that because I don't ever want to return to that spot, that I just can't stop moving forward, out of fear of of regressing back to that dark and evil place.
Uh, Man, you mentioned autism, and you said you think everybody in the Marine Corps has it. Um, I have ADHD and dyslexia, and there's a lot of things you're saying resonate with me because of the having to figure things out that no one gave me a roadmap for, those kind of things. I think
Yeah.
that there's a lot to be said for that. Of obviously you come from a different place and have I'm sure trauma from your combat experience and the different issues, but at the same time, there's a common thread, and I think when I see people like yourself being successful in the way that you are, I think is inspirational. But I think there is a lot to what you just said there.
Uh, but my wife has joked with me for years about it, right? And then finally, I think it was like 2 months and a half ago, 2 months ago, I broke down and I took the adult, like the RADS test, the adult autism test, and I scored a 162. 160 is high functioning autistic probabilities.
So you have no formal diagnosis, but that's what you believe from what you kind of,
That from
yeah.
that test, I think that's all I need to know, because it answers everything
Wow.
back in my life.
Yeah, yeah. I don't keep you all day. I could keep talking about this stuff, but you said you own or part of four different businesses. Tell me the other businesses that you operate.
Yeah, so there's Grunt Style. There is G3 Dynamics. So it is a competitive marksmanship business. So I put on the United States' largest and most prestigious long range shooting competition called the Mammoth Sniper Challenge. Put that on 2 times a year. And it's super, super successful. I think one of the very few private matches that are held on military installations.
Hmm.
Um, I also run a business called Rage 6 Games. So I have a degree in game theory and game design. I never used it. So during COVID, I was like, I'm going to start writing. I had this idea in my head for fucking years. And, it's like, uh, you know, dimensionality, fourth dimension, all this stuff. So I'm like, I'm gonna write it all out, and I finally put it into a game. I set the business in motion in 2022, um, and 2023 published my first book, my first game, and so that's kind of just running and doing its own thing. And then the Grunt Style Foundation. I founded the foundation on the president of the board or chairman of the board of that, and and heavily involved in the day-to-day activity of that as well. So four different worlds that I manage, and then all my extracurricular stuff. So I paint. I have a little painting thing to do, and you know woodworking, just all sorts of different shit.
Yeah, tell me about this. So two more questions here, and I'll wrap it up. But just the platform that Grunt Style, these other things have given you to speak about the things that matter to you. I mean, the burn pit thing, the PACT Act thing, h- how veterans are seen today, how they feel today. That all the things you've done have kind of given you a voice in saying, hey, there's a problem here. This needs to be looked at. But to just tell me about kind of like how you see that.
Yeah, again, I never would have imagined, I would be involved in half the things that I do. Right? If you would have, looking back at my life 20 years ago, like I was a punk kid, man, like doing stupid shit, making stupid decisions, yada yada yada. But I think what Grunt Style has given me the opportunity to do is reposition myself into an aspect of fulfillment, right? Of what my passion, what like I know that for me, I it is important for me to engage with people. It is important for me to see people do better than what they were doing before, right? And I think it's that simple. Like I don't have any other motivations than other than to see other people be successful. And if I can use my platform, my voice, the things that I'm capable and know that I'm good at to help others, I'm going to find ways of doing that. And that has pretty much been my MO, since I've come to this business, when I was a union carpenter and even when I was in the Marine Corps. And I think I've learned those things from, I had very great aunts and uncles that, instilled those character values into me at a very young age. And it's just been something that has driven me for so very long. I have a lot of, people in my family that have less, disabilities, and I've grown up that around my entire life, like being humble and helping my cousins that can't walk, spending time in school with the with children with Down syndrome and making sure, and helping them get to class. That's been the majority of my life, man.
Hmm.
And to be in a position now where I'm 47 years old, chief brand officer, co-owner of one of the biggest patriotic apparel brands in the country, that has the ability to use that as a voice for so many other people that that desperately need it, like our World Cry for Change, that is bringing attention to the overprescribing of SSRIs and psychotropics within the veteran space. Like that brings me great um, like personal value. Like it feels like I'm accomplishing something that I'm able to bring these types of conversations to the dinner table across the United States. Right, these are what we should be focusing on. Right, but we have a nature in this country to to get sidetracked and focus on some of the most stupid and boring shit that doesn't make sense to everybody. But we make the biggest mountains out of these things. So it's crazy to me.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of value to things that you're talking about and bringing to the forefront for sure. Final question is the thing that kind of brought us together. The Marine
Yeah.
Corps' 250th birthday. What does that mean to you? Like you said, you got in, you got out, you got back in, deployed. I mean, you that clearly means a lot to you and has in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I have everything. I want to be careful the way I say this. The Marine Corps has given me a lot in my life. It's given me discipline. It's given me character. It's given me values. I don't necessarily measure up to all those things, but it is something that is that I have. It's given me a direction in life. It's given me an azimuth to say this is what right looks like, and if you can be like this, then you can be close to perfect as possible. And I think that's what the Marine Corps has taught me. You know, the biggest takeaway. And the second thing that I think I'm grateful for is being part of something that is 250 years long, right? That is, my name will be with, the annals of many men and women that have done the incredible, that have stormed the beaches of Iwo Jima, right? That have, gone as far as, the Dominican island during the revolution to steal gunpowder that was critically needed for the the colonists at that time period. To think about the Marines at Quai San and the fight that they did in the 75-day siege in Vietnam. Like those are the caliber of individuals that I get to say that I stood upon and stood with shoulder to shoulder in the crazy place called the Triangle of Death in 2004, 2005, where we got to bring, the first Iraqi national election to a population of people that have never experienced freedom or democracy ever in their entire life, or at least a version of democracy and freedom. So I think that to me is the most profound, contributions that I could say that I've made to humankind is being part of the United States Marine Corps. Well, on one hand, bringing freedom and liberty to those that are the oppressed, and on the other hand, bringing death to those that are willing to stand on the heads of others.